So if you were wondering what the answer was to the last question, it would have been 180 grams of water. So now we have a new chemical reaction, and here we want to know how many moles of calcium chloride will be produced if you start with 3 moles of calcium, and then how many grams of calcium chloride will that be? So let's work on the first question first, and we want to know how many moles of calcium chloride will be produced if you start with 3 moles of calcium. I start with 3 moles of calcium, and I need to figure out my mole to mole ratio of calcium to calcium chloride. And what I'm looking for is moles of calcium chloride. So moles of calcium chloride will go on the top, and therefore the moles of calcium will be on the bottom. So how many moles of calcium do I start with? 1. And then how many moles of calcium chloride? 1. Well, now that's easy math. So we actually end up with 3 moles of calcium chloride. The second question is then asking, how many grams of calcium chloride will this be? Well, I know that on calcium chloride, there is 1 calcium and 2 chlorines. Each calcium has a mass of 40 grams per mole, and each chlorine is 35.5 grams. So 1 times 40 is 40, and 35.5 times 2 is 71. Add these together, and I get a total of 111 grams for every 1 mole. So how do I use this mole ratio to determine how many grams this is? So we know I start out with 3 moles, and I need to find grams. So grams is going to go here in the numerator, and my 1 mole in the denominator. And how many grams is that? It's 111. So 3 times 111 is 333 grams. Grams of what? Grams of calcium chloride. Moles cancel. I'm left with a gram, and we're good. So now, what if we're given mass and we need to find moles of a product formed? So if I start with 100 grams of hydrochloric acid, how many moles of calcium chloride will be created? Well, I need to convert grams to moles, and I already figured out the molar mass of hydrochloric acid. And if I know that I have 100 grams to start with, how am I going to use my molar mass to get moles? Well, moles is what I'm looking for, so that's going to go on top. And I know that for every 1 mole, we have 36.5 grams. So I take 100 times 1 divided by 36.5. So 100 times 1 divided by 36.5. I get 2.74 moles. Well, moles of what? Moles of HCl. So now I know how many moles of HCl I start with, and I need to figure out how many moles of CaCl2 I create. So I know I have 2.74 moles of HCl, and I'm trying to get 2 moles of CaCl2. Since this is my unknown, it's going to go in the numerator up top. So moles of CaCl2, and therefore moles of HCl will be on the bottom. Now I use my balanced equation, and I have 2 moles of HCl and 2 moles of HCl for every 1 mole of CaCl2. So now I take 2.74 times 1 divided by 2. And I get 1.37 moles. Alrighty, moles of what? Moles of calcium chloride. So take some time to practice through your practice packet, and if you have questions on any of them,